Hey guys, it's Mr. Wright. Before I get into anything, I just want to acknowledge just everything that's going on right now. Um, I was down at the protest over the weekend, and there's just a lot happening in the country right now that I think we all need to be thinking about and honestly need to be taking action over when we can. So I just encourage you, these protests. They've gone global. They're not even just national anymore. They're protesting in Ireland. And the effect of that is there's now three cases that they are not going to be able to ignore, right? That they're not going to be able to sweep under the rug. That if they do something wrong on these cases, we are going to see it and we are going to remember it. Which without these protests, that wouldn't have been the case. Now the whole world is watching, right? Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, George Floyd. We're watching. So, anyway, if you, I honestly, my attention has been focused on that all last week. I was on for like office hours and stuff, but I did not post a whole lot. If you didn't get to the essay and you want to do it and you want to talk to me about it, that's great. If not, just move forward with this. Don't worry about the essay. I'm not weighting it heavily. This next thing we're doing, I think, is going to be better for us right now in this moment, because it's the World's End unit, the unit that is talking about how the world might end and why we think about and write stories about the end of the world. And I feel like right now, all of the apocalyptic things happening in 2020, we should think about like how do stories we tell about the end of the world help us deal with these things when it comes? And, what does that even mean, the end of the world? Is that like, do you think that's something that's definitely going to happen? Will all humans eventually go extinct? Or is it going to go sci fi? Like, humans will always kind of press forward and find ways to survive? I don't know. Let's think about it. So today we're doing lesson 18. Lesson 18, Unit 6, World's End. Why do we try to imagine the future? And which means more, the present or the future? Great questions. So, what is the role of the CDC, the Centers for Disease Control? Centers for Disease Control, I mean, it's right there in the name, right? It's located here in America, in Atlanta. If you've ever watched Walking Dead, the like first season they go to the CDC in Atlanta, but it's abandoned and the zombies have taken over. Blah 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 blah. All right, so this story is Preparedness 101 Zombie Apocalypse. Because it's short, included in this video, I'm just going to read it to you guys now. So this is by Ali S. Khan, and it is a government website article, is what it's listed as. Background: the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention oversees government efforts to respond to disease and other health threats in the United States and overseas. One of the CDC's primary responsibilities is to keep the American public aware of the disaster preparations they can make. This selection does so with humor. There are all kinds of emergencies out there we can prepare for. Take a zombie apocalypse, for example. That's right, I said ZOMBIEAPOCALYPSE. Man, I shouldn't have done that. Just zombie apocalypse. You may laugh now, but when it happens, you'll be happy you read this, and hey, maybe you'll even learn a thing or two about how to prepare for a real emergency. A brief history of zombies. We've all seen at least one movie about flesh-eating zombies taking over. My personal favorite is Resident Evil. But where do zombies come from? And why do they love eating brains so much? The word zombie comes from Haitian and New Orleans voodoo origins. Although its meaning has changed slightly over the years, it refers to a human corpse mysteriously reanimated to serve the undead. Through ancient voodoo and folklore traditions, shows like The Walking Dead were born. In movies, shows, and literature, zombies are often depicted as being created by an infectious virus, which is passed on via bites and contact with bodily fluids. Harvard psychiatrist Stephen Schlotzman wrote a fictional medical paper on the zombies presented in The Night of the Living Dead and refers to the condition as ataxic neurodegenerative satiety deficiency syndrome caused by an infectious agent. The Zombie Survival Guide identifies the cause of zombies as a virus called Solanum. Other zombie origins shown in films include radiation from a destroyed NASA Venus probe, as in Night of the Living Dead, as well as mutations of existing conditions such as prions, proteins that cause disease, mad cow disease, measles, and rabies. The rise of zombies in pop culture has given credence to the idea that a zombie apocalypse could happen. In such a scenario, zombies would take over entire countries, roaming city streets, eating anything living that got in their way. The proliferation of this idea has led many people to wonder, how do I prepare for a zombie apocalypse? Well, we're here to answer that question for you and hopefully share a few tips about preparing for real emergencies too. Better safe than sorry. So, what do you need to do before zombies, or hurricanes, or pandemics, for example, actually happen? It defines pandemic for us here, but I feel like we all know that word now. Huge disease outbreaks. Yeah, we all know about that. Um, First of all, you should have an emergency kit in your house. This includes things like water, food, and other supplies to get you through the first couple of days before you can locate a zombie free refuge camp. Or in the event of a natural disaster, it will buy you some time until you are able to make your way to an evacuation shelter or utility lines are restored. Below are a few items you should include in your kit. Water, 1 gallon per person per day. Food, stocked up on non perishable items that you eat regularly. Medications, this includes prescription and non prescription meds. Tools and supplies, utility knife, duct tape, battery powered radio, etc. Sanitation and hygiene, household bleach, soap, towels, etc. A change of clothes for each family member and blankets. Important documents, copies of your driver's license, passport, and birth certificate, to name a few. First aid supplies. Although you're a goner if a zombie bites you, you can use these supplies to treat basic cuts and lacerations that you might get during a tornado or hurricane. Once you've made your emergency kit, you should sit down with your family and come up with an emergency plan. This includes things like where you would go and who you would call if zombies started appearing outside your doorstep. You can also implement this plan if there's a flood, earthquake, or other emergency. Identify the types of emergencies that are possible in your area. Besides a zombie apocalypse, this may include floods, tornadoes, or earthquakes. If you are unsure, contact your local Red Cross chapter for more information. Pick a meeting place for your family to regroup in case zombies invade your home or your town evacuates because of a hurricane. Pick one place right outside your home for sudden emergencies and one place outside of your neighborhood in case you are unable to return home right away. Identify your emergency contacts. Make a list of local contacts like the police, fire department, and your local zombie response team. Also, identify an out-of-state contact that you can call during an emergency to let the rest of your family know you are okay. Plan your evacuation route. When zombies are hungry, they won't stop until they get food, i.e., brains, which means you need to get out of town fast. Plan where you would go and multiple routes you would take ahead of time so that when the flesh eaters don't have a chance. This is also helpful when natural disasters strike and you have to take shelter fast. Never fear, CDC is ready. If zombies did start roaming the streets, CDC would conduct an investigation much like any other disease outbreak. CDC would provide technical assistance to cities, states, or international partners dealing with zombie infestation. This assistance might include consultation, lab testing and analysis, patient management and care, tracking of contacts, and infection control, including isolation and quarantine. It's likely that an investigation of this scenario would seek to accomplish several goals: determine the cause of the illness, the source of the infection, virus, toxin, learn how it is transmitted and how readily it is spread, how to break the cycle of transmission and thus prevent further cases, and how patients can best be treated. Not only would scientists be working to identify the cause and cure of the zombie outbreak, but CDC and other federal agencies would send medical teams and first responders to help those in affected areas. I will be volunteering the young nameless disease detectives for the field work. So, where does the zombie myth come from? It comes from Haiti, right? Haitian and New Orleans voodoo, which some zombie stories give credence to that and make reference to it, but not all, right? So that's kind of cool to think about. It comes from really black and brown communities. and from their religion, right? Voodoo is more than just, it really was a religion as well as kind of a form of magic. So, for what situations other than zombie apocalypse would these instructions be useful? He lists them, right? So just go back and find that. In addition to food and water, what other items should an emergency kit include? It, so he has a big list in there that you can go back and check. In the case of a zombie outbreak, what organization would conduct an investigation and provide technical assistance? The CDC. But now that you've seen how the CDC has handled corona, you know, do you think you'd trust them? Would they be saying one day, hey, zombie bites, like, spread the disease, definitely avoid zombie bites, and the next day, oh, we were wrong about that. It's actually only something else. Anyway, um, one day they're saying you need to wear masks, the next they're not, right? Um, if we had a zombie outbreak, do you think there would be people complaining about the economy and being like, why are we quarantined? We should just be, if there's zombies, we'll just kill them. Like, let's just get outside. um, so as we move into the work here with the end of the world, just really be thinking about, like, we got kind of a stress test to see how people respond to these things, to see what actually happens, right? The zombie outbreak would probably happen slowly with martial law, right? And injustices against minority communities because they're telling you to stay indoors and you didn't, and so they're right, rubber bullets. Like, we would be seeing the same stuff if there were a zombie outbreak. And do your stories about zombie outbreaks, do they acknowledge that, or is it just a fun action movie that doesn't really think about the social consequences of what would happen? Because we're getting to see if these things were real, if these things really happen, how would America deal with that? And I think Jordan Peele, he with Get Out and with Us, he's starting to move in the direction of really telling some stories along these lines that actually deal with those social issues. So who else has done that, right? What kinds of most horror, interestingly enough, is about big ideas, right? Texas Chainsaw Massacre was actually a movie trying to get people to be vegetarians. Which is like ridiculous, but it's like you can look it up. It's totally true. Um, so anyway, the horror we make reflects our deepest anxieties, what we're most fearful of, and that makes sense, right? But it gets translated into some kind of a monster, uh, or sometimes a virus, right? Zombies are the horror that reflects our society's deep anxiety about a pandemic, about a disease, about being traced by the government because, hey, you might have had contact with it. All of those things that we are experiencing now. This is the boring zombie apocalypse. All right, crew. I hope you enjoy this piece. Sorry I went long. I love you. Bye.